esteemed guest here, Neerja Jain. So, the itinerary for today is I'm going to say 3 prayers at the beginning, or maybe you can have Lata Mangeshkar singing a bit. Then I'll introduce Neerja Jain. She works for a charity, but I'll give you a bit more introduction to her later. There'll be a Q&A for everybody. You can ask her questions. Then Sami Jain will talk about his personal experience of being an organ recipient. And then I'll pass it on to Sarita Aunty, who make a plea for some volunteers and talk about events for the next 6 months. And Neelam Aunty and Rakesh Uncle will sing a bhajan, and my father-in-law, he'll talk about he'll give a masterclass on logos. So without further ado, I'll recite 3 Noga mantras. So you put your hands together. So Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayayanam, Namo Uvajayanam, Namo Loya Sabvisahuanam, Eso Pancha Muktaro, Sabva Pava Panasano, Mangalanencha Savresin Paramam Have Mangalam. Okay, you can come off mute if you would like to join me. So Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayayanam, Namo Uvajayanam, Namo Loya Savvisahuanam, Eso Pancha Muktaro, Sabva Pava Panasano, Final one. So Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayayanam, Namo Uvajayanam, Namo Loya Sabvisahuanam, Eso Pancha Muktaro, Sabva Pava Panasano, Mangala Nature Sabha Param Have Mangalam. So the next part of this program is to give you a bit of an introduction to Neerja Jain. So Neerja works for Kidney Research UK as a Health Equalities Program Manager. She's works on a sort of evidence-based approach, and she's multi-award winning peer educator. And she's been working this role for 15 years, training and supporting over 160 peer educators. I'm really interested in what a peer educator is, in raising awareness of kidney health issues and organ donation in various communities across the UK. She's presented previously. She's got a BSc and a master's, and she's working towards her PhD. Her work has been published widely, and we're quite privileged to have her here today. She's also a trained renal nurse, and she's worked previously as a transplant coordinator and a kidney ward sister in Birmingham. A fantastic person, a person who's in a caregiving profession, and we're very lucky to have her talk today. So without further ado, I'll just pass it over to Neerja.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And can I just say, Jai Janinderji, thank you to Manorji and Indudidi as well, who encouraged me to come along and speak to you today about a very important subject. But can I say, on this day, the 6th of February, where we lost the great late Lata Mangeshkarji, who gave us that wonderful introduction, the Mukar Mantar, absolutely beautiful. Can I say that as someone who's grown up in the UK, I've grown up listening to Lataji, and she has given me the connection to India and to my Indianness, and I wouldn't be doing this work for the Asian community and other people who are disadvantaged if it wasn't for her. I also wouldn't be doing this work if it wasn't for my late father, Mr. Kedarnath Jain, because he encouraged me to study and to make a difference in the work that I do. So I pay tribute to him. So once again, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the title of my talk, Kidney Health, Kidney Disease and Organ Donation. So I'll be talking about what kidney disease is, how you can look after your kidneys to make sure they're healthy, because really catastrophic illness can occur if things do go wrong, and a little bit about organ donation. So just a little bit about the charity that I work for. It's Kidney Research UK, and we're the leading charity committed to developing treatments and, sorry, excuse me, I can't quite see that. Just bear with me. That's it. So we're the leading charity committed to developing treatments, patient information, and raising vital public awareness to help save lives. Every year, we estimate that over 60,000 people with kidney failure are alive today because of the research that we've done over the last 60 years or so. And with our research breakthroughs, more kidney patients and their families have the chance of a normal life. I'll be going into a bit more detail, but this is just some of the top line information. Kidney disease is a silent killer, and I'll share with you why that is shortly. There are no obvious symptoms, suffice to say here. There are 3 million people in the UK with it right now, and there is no cure. And sadly, about 1 million people, we estimate, in the UK have got kidney disease and don't even know about it. Kidney failure is up to 5 times more common in people from minority ethnic communities. And here's a shocking statistic. South Asian people with diabetes are 10 times more likely to get kidney failure than white people with diabetes. The 2 major causes of kidney disease, you may be surprised to know, are 2 very common conditions in the Asian community, and these are diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, and high blood pressure. I'll say more about all of those shortly. So what is the need? Why do we, as a charity, why do I do the work I do? Well, minority ethnic communities represent about 14% of the UK population, with the South Asian groups being the largest group at about 7.5%. And unfortunately, South Asian people, those of Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan origin, are much more likely to need a transplant. They're less likely to donate their organs, and yet they wait much longer for a donation. We know that registration onto the NHS organ donor register from these communities is far lower, proportionately speaking. We find that many people from these communities are actually unaware of the health issues surrounding the impact of diabetes and high blood pressure, which is so common in the Asian communities and which can lead to kidney failure. We want to help these communities and others recognise the importance of organ donation. And we have to do that by really challenging the misinformation around the law, the operations. There's loads of myths about mutilations and delays to the burial and so on and so forth. And we also want to address the cultural and religious misconceptions and lack of knowledge. And that isn't helped by sometimes language barriers. And what I will talk about more is how we have addressed this through actually providing what wasn't there before, a community member link for peer educators. And I'll talk more about those shortly. Very quickly, a little bit about the kidneys, kidney health and kidney disease. So the function of the kidneys. So first of all, to say that most people are born with 2 kidneys, but you will have heard that people can function perfectly well if they have 1 healthy kidney. So we don't know really why we've been born with 2, and they're kind of positioned right in the back, just below our lungs. 1 kidney is slightly bigger and slightly higher than the other. And we know that healthy kidneys help to cleanse the blood of toxins. So, you know, in the day-to-day metabolism of the human body, when you're going about your business, eating, drinking, we produce waste products. And healthy kidneys help to get rid of some of those toxins, and they transform the waste into urine. The kidneys also balance water and chemicals like potassium and sodium. They have a very important function in regulating blood pressure, which many people don't know about, because there's a hormone that sits near the kidneys that regulates blood pressure. And there's also another hormone that's associated with the kidneys called erythropoietin, which is needed for formation of red blood cells, and so therefore preventing anemia. many causes of kidney disease. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to mention that there are, like any disease, there are sometimes hereditary causes, and infections can cause kidney disease. A trauma, for example, a bad road traffic accident might damage your kidneys for good or even temporarily. I've mentioned hypertension, which is high blood pressure and diabetes, and even some medications like non-steroidal and anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, if taken more excessively than they should be. The diagnosis of CKD or chronic kidney disease is done in a number of ways. One can be through a urine test to check whether there's protein or blood in the urine, which is abnormal. Through a blood test to measure the amount of waste products circulating, such as creatinine, and it shouldn't be too much. You expect a certain amount of wastage, but healthy kidneys should be removing that waste as well. And then diagnosis is also done through other tests such as ultrasound scan and biopsy. I mentioned earlier that chronic kidney disease and kidney failure even is a silent killer, because there are not lots of people ask me what are the symptoms, and tragically the symptoms are very vague, very few, and actually don't appear until the very late stages of the illness, unlike some illnesses. So, for example, people might feel very, very tired, but tiredness can be caused by all sorts of illnesses. They can feel nausea and vomiting and severe itching. But as I said, these are only in the later stages, so please don't wait to have these symptoms before seeking advice. I'll tell you when and how you should seek advice sooner. There are a number of stages of chronic kidney disease. And I won't go into all the detail, but this is the sort of the level at which the kidneys filtrate waste products. And really, stage 5 at the bottom there, as you can see, is actually kidney failure, where you will need dialysis or a transplant to stay alive. And that is actually when the kidneys are performing at less than 15%. So they have to be failing pretty miserably before you have to seek treatment. The other stages are, as I'll describe, you can manage those with the help of your GP. So who should be tested for chronic kidney disease? Regular tests are definitely recommended if you have high blood pressure and diabetes, which I'm sure many people sadly on this call will have, and many of your relatives may well have. You may not know it, but your GP should be doing at least annual tests to look at how your kidneys are functioning if you have high blood pressure or diabetes, because these are very common factors that can cause damage to the kidneys. And next time you go and see your GP, please ask him if you have diabetes and high blood pressure, if they've been monitoring your kidney function. And he will probably show you a graph, and every year they will plot on that graph how your kidneys are functioning. And it's when there is a sudden decline or a significant drop that they will instigate some further treatment. I've mentioned the others before, so I won't go into that. So in terms of the treatment of chronic kidney disease, as I said, and it really is true, there is no cure. Sadly, we know that some cancers have better rates of cure than kidney disease. Some people can live a perfectly normal life following a cancer diagnosis, but once a patient has kidney failure or advanced kidney disease, there is no cure. We have to just treat the symptoms and try and stop it getting worse. And the treatment, as I mentioned, depends on the stage of kidney disease. And up to stage 3, there are medical and lifestyle changes, which I'll come on to, which can be very beneficial. In terms of medical treatment, certainly the best treatment for high blood pressure and diabetes is the medication that you're given, and to make sure that you keep your blood pressure and your diabetes absolutely under control. And the same goes for high cholesterol. So stages 4 and 5, potentially then, that is where we have to prepare the patient for what's called renal replacement therapy. Renal is another word for kidney, and that's where we start preparing the patient for something like dialysis, for example, which then, if they do have to have, they have to have 3 times a week, often in a hospital, and each time it's for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So it's a huge drain on their time, huge physical drain on them, and it takes up a lot of time even before and after, because there's time needed to prepare and also to recover from the dialysis treatment. So there really isn't a good solution. Yes, we can keep a patient alive, and many patients are kept alive, sometimes for decades, but many will tell you, most will tell you actually, that it really isn't a good quality of life. And the best quality of life will come from a kidney transplant usually. So there are treatments like this. So there on the top left-hand side, you see a lady on hemodialysis. This is often the hospital treatment, although some patients can do it at home, 4 hours at a time for 3 times a week. Some patients can be taught to run the machine themselves at home. And there's also another form of dialysis that's done through the abdomen. So the lady on the right at the top there is doing her own peritoneal dialysis, and this patient can do at home once they've been taught to do so. And transplantation is really probably the best treatment for most patients, and this comes through a donation. Again, I'll show you a little video about that shortly. And then there's what we call conservative management, which is for whatever reason, if a patient doesn't want to or can't undertake dialysis or a transplant, then unfortunately we offer them just a management of their symptoms, and sometimes just a palliative care, really, like cancer patients have at the end of their lives. So I can skip this really. We've mentioned that treatment of the CKD is really about managing the BP, the diabetes, and the high cholesterol. So I talked about lifestyle changes briefly, I mentioned, and this is in the early stages of kidney disease, or if you have diabetes and high blood pressure, how you should really look after yourself, because that can pay dividends in terms of you avoiding developing chronic kidney damage. And these are the kind of things that we all know about, but we all do struggle with as well at times, I appreciate. So one of the things is stopping smoking. We know smoking is bad for your heart and your lungs. It's actually really bad for your kidneys as well. To have a healthy and balanced diet. That actually is really good advice for just about anything. So it applies to preventing kidney disease as well. Salt is very dangerous for kidneys. So, and we know it's bad for your heart as well. So again, reducing salt intake to less than 6 grams per day. Regular exercise. Again, I don't need to tell you this, but exercise is great for both our physical and our mental health, but it helps maintain a healthy weight because we know that, again, obesity is a risk factor for kidney disease. If you drink alcohol, to have less than 14 units a week, because too much alcohol isn't good for any of the body's organs. And I mentioned there as well, losing weight if you are overweight. If you break it down a little bit, in a bit more detail, the treatments of chronic kidney disease, or if you're on the verge of developing it, high blood pressure, lifestyle changes, as I've just mentioned, ensuring you take your anti-hypertensive medication as prescribed. There are a whole range on the market, and if one doesn't suit you, you can have another. If you've got getting side effects from one, I know that's often a problem. Diabetes, absolutely. If you have got diabetes, please manage your diet as you're supposed to. If you're on medication, tablets or insulin, please take those as prescribed. And the main thing is to keep both your diabetes and your high blood pressure under control. And that is really the best way to avoid you developing kidney disease. And the same goes with high cholesterol. Lifestyle changes, as I've mentioned, and plus the use of statins. And the whole aim is really to stop the progression of kidney disease, leading to a point where you might need dialysis, and also to prevent cardiovascular complications like heart attacks and strokes, which are very much linked with kidney disease. Specifically, I just want to focus a little bit here on kidney disease in South Asians. So obviously, the diaspora in this country from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. The common conditions are type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure that can lead us to getting kidney failure. I want to repeat this statistic that I mentioned right at the beginning because it is really shocking and it's really important. South Asians with diabetes are 10 times, yes, 10 times more likely to get kidney failure compared to a white person with diabetes. We don't know exactly why, but we've seen that in the statistics. So for some reason, diabetes affects us much more badly than it does a white person. So again, it's just so important to keep your diabetes under control. We know that in South Asian communities, unfortunately, sometimes we present late in end-stage renal failure. Now, what I mean by that is that you all know that the earlier that you pick up symptoms, the earlier you detect a disease, the quicker it can be treated. So again, for some reason, we're not picking up kidney disease until it's far too late in the South Asian community. But I have described how if you have diabetes and high blood pressure, it's so important that you're monitored by your GP and you keep things under control. And if you keep things under control, then you shouldn't be presenting with end-stage renal failure at all. Obesity is a big factor, and we know in our Asian communities, central obesity around the abdomen is a particularly dangerous problem for both heart disease and kidney disease. So to avoid obesity in that area in particular. And we also know that there are sometimes issues around non-compliance with tablets, for example. You know, we know that patients don't like taking certain tablets because they've got side effects or for whatever reason. But then that really is important. It's really important then to have a discussion with your GP about what medication isn't suiting you and what medication can suit you, so that you do control your diabetes and high blood pressure. And it's so important to have engagement with your health service. Sometimes language can be a barrier, sometimes cultural issues can be a barrier, but it's really important to be an active partner in your health with your GP. It's your body, it's your life. So don't let the GP just do onto you or tell you what to do. Take an active role in making sure you're healthy. And please don't seek non-medical professional advice like quacks and bobbers, as I've been told some people do. Do seek medical advice that's evidence-based. A couple of other issues surrounding kidney disease in South Asians: language barrier. Obviously, there's some members of our community that for whom language is still an issue, and we have to make sure that we can provide adequate translations or adequate advocacy for those patients, so that they can again be active participants in their own health. We know sometimes there are limited resources about everything really, because maybe they're not available in the right languages. But increasingly so, and also at Kidney Research UK, we've developed written information in the 5 South Asian languages and English, and we also have a DVD in 5 South Asian languages and English, all about looking after your kidneys. And yeah, I'll leave the rest, actually, that's a bit more detail. So in summary of this bit, it's so important to detect early any signs of kidney disease. And this can happen if you are one of the at-risk groups and your kidney function is being monitored. And that will be done through effective treatment and control of risk factors like diabetes and high blood pressure. And only then, if you're monitored carefully, then you will have timely and planned kidney support from the specialists at the hospital. We have been trying to improve community links and increase awareness of kidney disease and organ donation among South Asian communities through presentations like this for a number of years, and also through our peer educators, which I haven't forgotten, I will tell you more about shortly. And we have, thankfully, over the years, improved representation of South Asian people onto the NHS organ donor register, which is essentially about people donating their organs after death. So if I can just quickly share a new one with you. Sorry, just get the right one. I think this, no. Let me try again. Sorry, excuse me, technology. I stop sharing that, and then I share Can you see that at all?
No.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
And as they say, technology is as good as it works.
We did do a little test, but it doesn't seem to be
all
working.
of us. Don't worry. Take your time. No worries.
Okay. Share windows. Oh,
Cool. That's good. Yeah, we can
yeah.
see.
That's great.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll put the volume up my side. Just make
You
sure.
may want to maximize that.
Yes, I will. Yep, sure.
Some nice Bollywood songs.
Donor to die in hospital in specific circumstances. When this happens, a specialist nurse will check if you're a registered organ donor and share this information with your family. If you are a registered donor, your family will be expected to support your decision. And if you aren't, they will be asked to make a decision on your behalf, which is why it's so important that you tell your family what you want. Don't leave them to make a decision at a difficult time without being certain about what you wanted. A number of tests will need to take place to check your organs are suitable for patients. Then, if organ donation can proceed, your donated organs will be matched to patients on the transplant waiting list who are in desperate need of an organ transplant. Organ donors are treated with the same respect, dignity, and care as any other patient and can save or transform the lives of up to 9 people. More than 50,000 people are alive today across the UK due to the generosity of organ donors and their families. But right now, around 6,000 seriously ill people are waiting for a life-saving transplant. Joining the NHS Organ Donor Register is the best way to ensure that your decision is honoured when you die. 3 people die each day in need of a transplant, so go to organdonation.nhs.uk and sign up now. And remember to tell your family you want to give the gift of life.
Thank you. Right, I'll just carry on sharing my other one now. Can you see my slides again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Also, just to say that some of the work we're doing is because, and you've probably heard a lot about this recently, is levelling up society. Michael Gove was talking about it this week, and although he talked about sort of economic levelling up of society, there was a mention of health inequalities. So we know, and I'm sure you do as well, that people who come from poorer backgrounds live in, say, deprived areas with high pollution. Their health outcomes, their risk of getting any disease is much more. And we recognise this, and it's absolutely the same for kidney disease as well. But we know that certain people are more disadvantaged than others. I mentioned about people from South Asian backgrounds with diabetes and hypertension, but also South Asian and Black people are 3 to 5 times more likely to start dialysis. And people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities are less likely to receive kidney transplants, as I said. So all the awareness we're doing is to try and level up things so people who are disadvantaged are just given that much more extra information and support so that they're not as disadvantaged across the board. We know that, for example, as well, other than ethnicity, we know that younger people have a higher relative risk of having poor clinical outcomes from chronic kidney disease, as are older people who are less likely to have a transplant. So a lot of the work, I mean, this is just a flavour I'm giving you here, but a lot of the work we're doing is to try and address these health inequalities, and hence my title. So I promised I would tell you a little bit about peer educators. So who are they? They are actually volunteers, fantastic volunteers for our charity, who are truly representative of the target Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. They really are the right messengers because they have that shared culture, faith, language. They come to us with a wealth of life experience, and they really do help us spread awareness about everything from early stage kidney disease to how to manage your diabetes, right through to end of life and talking about organ donation. They really are very passionate people who want to give back to their communities and want to give back to the NHS. So they help us give those right messages in the right way. And the peer educators, or the PEs as I call them, it really warms me personally, because they grow in confidence, because they really feel they're making a difference to their communities. Here's some pictures of some of our fabulous peer educators up and down the UK, going about spreading their word. They're emblazoned in purple, which is our corporate colour, and they're all sorts of ages, different backgrounds, men and women, and they're doing some fantastic work out there, really raising awareness about the kind of things I've been talking to you about today. Here's a few more pictures of them. And it's just been a real pleasure to get to know these wonderful people who give their precious time to raise awareness of life-saving issues. I've probably trained over 160 peer educators over the last nearly 17 years from different backgrounds, as I said, and particularly in a number of cities like Leicester, Luton, Bradford, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Birmingham, and across London. And we do a lot of awareness, certainly pre-pandemic, in, face-to-face, in places of worship, in community centres, at cultural events, and so on. And that's just to show that it's an evidence-based approach. It was written up in a peer-reviewed medical journal to show that this approach really does work in helping disadvantaged communities to better their health. And I'm really proud of all the teams, because they've all won awards. The picture on the left-hand side is a couple of peer educators, Shanaz and Maz, who won an award from the business community in Birmingham. The middle one there is a lady called Usha, who's one of our oldest peer educators. She's in her 70s, and she won a Harrow's Heroes Award a couple of years ago. And then on the right-hand side there is my team in Scotland, who won an award up there. I think that was from a voluntary organisation. Yeah, so really proud of them all. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd like to acknowledge two of my colleagues who helped me put this presentation together and for all the work they do. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Neerja. I've got millions of questions, but I don't want to monopolize this. We've got a question from the chat. We'll start with that. So it's from Ankush. What constitutes a good and healthy, balanced diet?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are differences for individuals, because you may have an underlying condition, for example, but generally it's far less salt than most of us have. So less than 6 grams. So you do have to read all the packaging, etc. Far less sugar than most of us have. Far less fat than we have. Basically, you're 5 a day. Pretty much a minimum of 5 a day, which may be a couple of pieces of fruit. And as Jains, we should have no problem in getting our 5 a day in. Lots of vegetables, lots of salad. You can't go far wrong. And good protein sources as well. Drinking plenty of water, less of the fizzy stuff, less of the sugary stuff, but plenty of water is good for your kidneys and overall. But it's not the same without exercise. So you have to have exercise as well.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's a fantastic presentation. I've got quite a few questions myself. Are people now not automatically auto-enrolled onto donation registers?
Good question. I'm glad you brought it up, actually. So you are and you aren't. So since about a year ago, almost a year ago, we have now gone on to an opt-out law, which basically, yes, you are presumed to be a donor unless you go onto the NHS organ donation site and opt out. However, your family will always be asked. And if your family still say no, the doctors have no authority to automatically take your organs. So we would like to presume that you would like to donate your organs, unless you have lodged an objection, but your family will always be asked. Likewise, if you haven't expressed any opinion, your family will be asked, and their opinion, either way, will be respected.
Okay, do some communities object on religious grounds?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And some of those are actual religious grounds, or some of them are perceived religious grounds. And I'll say perceived because, as an example, we do have lots of controversy from the Muslim communities. There are schools of thought that say, yes, you can. Other schools of thought that say it's up to the individual. And others that say that you can donate while you're alive, say a kidney, if you're healthy, but you can't donate when you've died. As far as I know, there are no objections from the Jain, Hindu or Sikh communities.
Okay. Are Indians or Asians more genetically predisposed to kidney issues, or is this an issue in India as well, or, you know?
Yeah, again, yeah, good question. One of the issues about comparing directly with India is lack of data. We don't have the same amount of data that we do here. But we do suspect, and we know that, for example, middle-class Indians in India have higher levels of obesity, diabetes, and kidney failure. It is definitely a disease of the more affluent. And we see a high proportion here. So I don't think we have the full data in India, but we know that certainly, and very sadly, South Asians are disproportionately highly at risk of kidney disease in this country and in the West in general.
Okay. Sorry, I've got 2 more questions. I've got more questions, but I don't want to monopolize this. Does intermittent fasting help to maintain sugar levels?
Cool. Now, I'm not sure about that one. If you're diabetic?
No, if you basically only eat, say, 2 or 3 times a day, you don't eat in between.
Yeah.
Your insulin levels, are they not being more stable?
Yeah.
Is that
So
healthier?
what I have heard, and I wouldn't, because we're talking about sugar levels, I wouldn't apply this advice to anyone with diabetes. They should seek professional advice. But I have heard a lot about the benefits from intermittent fasting, where maybe for about 12 to 14 hours, including overnight, you fast. And I have heard that has good all-round health benefits from some reliable sources, yes.
Excellent. And last question. Weight training is meant to be a good way of controlling diabetes. Do you know of any research, or do you agree with that statement?
I don't know much about the weight training aspects of it at all in terms of doing that. But one thing that we do know is that people who weight train tend to consume quite a lot of protein, whether it's protein supplements. Now, we know that too much protein can damage the kidneys.
Sorry, can we ask everybody to mute because there's a really loud singing in the background?
Okay, yes.
Thank you. I know I was competing against that beautiful Lata Mangeshkar. I think the Lata Mangeshkar tributes will be playing for all year now. I don't blame people for putting it on.
Okay, I'll pass it over to everybody else. Anyone who wants to ask a question, please unmute. And then I've got more questions if no one wants to ask questions. Anybody want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi, it's Savita here. Neerja, you said that the kidney disease can be managed manually, right? Am I right in understanding that?
Very early stages. If you have very early stages, it can be managed by yourself and at GPs. Yes. Okay.
I thought you said that if somebody didn't want to go on dialysis, it could be managed.
No. If they are told they have to go on dialysis, then sadly it's too late to manage it. And that's why it's really important to pick it up early and be monitored and know what your kidney function is like very early on. So in the very early stages, absolutely, as I mentioned, it can be managed and sometimes stopped from deteriorating if you manage it through your diet, your lifestyle, stopping smoking, reducing your weight gain, exercise, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question? Okay, I'll ask one more question. If anybody else wants to ask a question, please pipe in. Do kidneys filter out artificial sweeteners?
You are coming up with some good questions today. Most of them I can ask. I'm not sure about that, actually. I can't hand on heart say whether they do. But I do know artificial sweeteners aren't the best thing for you. So, yeah.
Has anybody got any questions?
Oh yeah, sorry, I have a very quick one. For the kidneys, they say that you should drink like 3 to 4 litres of water a day, but I think that's probably mainly for athletes. What would you recommend for the average person who probably just does 10,000 steps and a bit of exercise, but doesn't go crazy on weightlifting and what have you not?
Yeah, yeah, 3 to 4 litres is a hell of a lot of water. And so, no, I think most people, if you can manage between about a litre to probably about 1,600 mils a day of water, then that's really good, actually. And, you know, again, as Jains, we have a lot of water in our, you know, dals, for example, in fruits that we might eat, salads, and that all contributes as well.
Right, okay. Thanks.
If there are no more questions, sorry, Manoj, do you have a question? Sorry.
No, I'm
Just a little addition to that. Ideally, you should have, on an average person, in winter, you should have about 2 to 2.5 liter of fluids, all types of fluids. But in summertime, because you sweat as well, you lose more with sweat and with your respiration, you should have 0.5 liter more. So on an average, 3, but then all depends upon how much exercise you do. And more exercise you do, you need more water, more fluids. And it is the fluid, not water alone. I mean, in the sense that you have a tea, you have juices, you have vegetables, which are rich in water. You have fruits, and then you have milk as well, those who drink milk. So all these fluids, you need about that much water. And this is an average for about 70 kilogram person. Now, if you are heavier, then you need a bit more fluids. And if you are lighter, then you need slightly less fluids. But on an average, between 2 liters to 3 liters, depending upon the season and your activity, I think that is the right amount of fluids that you should have. Is that right, Neerja?
Well, as I said, it does depend on the individual. We actually don't need as much as 3 or 4 liters. Generally speaking, you know, between a liter.
There are athletes who need 4 liters a day, yeah, but because they lose quite a lot in the sweat and in respiration by doing the exercises, that's why they need a bit more. On an average, you lose about 600 to 700 liters, 700 cc, that milliliter by your perspiration, and about equally that much from your respiration, breathing.
Okay, thank you so much. It was so interesting. I loved the presentation, the information. And if you can send through Manoj, if you can send us some links that you'd like us to send out to our email database. Any, you know, like those videos are really quite interesting. We can send them out to you know, to our community. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And
thank you for having me, Judge and Indraji.
And
I think the question was about how much salt that you need to take. I think Neerja already mentioned it in her presentation that it is about 6 grams of Neerja. But there are patients who excrete more salt in their urine. So you need to be sure of. Lack of salt would make you drowsy, listless, and all that. So, I mean, if you feel that you are not quite right up to it, you know, and you don't have energy, etc., it's best to go to the GP and get a renal function test done, which estimates salt and potassium level as well. Yeah, and many people, you would be surprised that many elderly people are low in salt, and that's why we give them salt in a tablet form. to take them extra. Yeah. So it is important that salt there is no fixed amount of the salt as such, but this is an average recommended amount, 6 to 8 gram of salt per day, depending, again, everything depends upon your weight and your activity, because you lose more salt if you are an athletic. So if you are a sportsman, you lose more salt in your sweat. And you don't lose salt in your breath, but you lose salt on sweating. So that's an important consideration in deciding that how much salt you should have. But anyway, the symptoms are that you don't feel right up to it, yeah, or you don't have that much of energy. If you feel that way, straight away go and get the blood test done. That would tell us the level of sodium in your blood, and from there the correction can take place. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Samir, or Sami as we know him. He was an organ receiver in 2011 for corneal transplant, and he's had a positive transformative effect on his life. And without further ado, if we can put the spotlight on Sami, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that nice introduction. Yeah, so I'm Sami. Most of you will probably know me as Sarita's son. And yeah, I'm here to talk about the benefits of having been an organ receiver. When I was younger, when I was at my university, teens university, used to be like with like friends. They'd always make a like comments that they'd be like, "Oh wow, you can't see, you're blind, you can't see this, you can't do this, you can't do that." And I was thinking to myself, like, I thought at one point, they're probably taking the mick out of me, just being friends and all that kind of sort of stuff. But like later on, when I got into my later 20s, and being in the profession that I'm in as an edit producer, it became quite noticeable that my vision was impaired. So I've got something called keratoconus, which is a disorder of the eye that results in progressive thinning of the cornea. So essentially in the left eye, I couldn't see properly. Like, if I covered my right eye and looked in the left, whoever was like literally like just in front of me, I wouldn't be able to see at all. Right eye was fine, but like there's still a little bit of stigma there. So I it's something that I got checked out, and I was on a waiting list for, and I did have a corneal transplant when I was about 28, 29, I think. I look back at it now, and yeah, it was pretty painful. I mean, like I had 16 stitches in the eye in such a small surface area, and like the aftercare treatment was painful to say the least. But like, over the years with the amount of appointments that I've had, and having looked after the eye and all that kind of sort of stuff, I look back at it now and it made such an improvement to my life. You can't, like, I mean, like, obviously we've Neerja's talked about like kidney transplant and stuff like that, and like this is obviously like the eye, but you got to do your utmost to be as like healthy as you can. So I'm very, very grateful that I got the donation when I did, and actually thinking about what Neerja kind of sort of said, and I think one of the questions that was asked a little bit earlier about when you should kind of sort of have the problem looked at is you try to get the problem looked at as soon as possible. I mean, if I'd acted upon, you know, some of my friends' comments, like in my early 20s, you know, I could have potentially not gone down the route of actually having the corneal transplant. Like, you know, initially what they'd said to me was that, you know, you could have had lenses to correct the vision. But because it had gone beyond that point, the only option I was left with was to get the transplant. It's improved my life massively. You know, I do have to continuously like have drops to stop potential rejection of the cornea. But you know, all I can say is that, you know, I'm very lucky that I was able to kind of sort of like spot it, at least when I did, and get it done as soon as I realized that it was going to affect my life in the way that it could have done. So I can't speak highly enough of being an organ receiver and the potential benefits to other people being an organ donor, because I don't know, personally, I don't know so much about like what goes on in our community about that kind of sort of stuff, but I would imagine that there's a lot of trepidation in organ receiving and giving, because of the perhaps either the lack of information out there, or you know, people tend to sort of like gravitate to the negative immediately, and perhaps listen to advice from people who aren't medical professionals, and you know, who perhaps aren't in the know, to make those like life-changing decisions. So, you know, all I can kind of sort of say is from my personal experience is that I'm so happy, and you know, I'm so glad, and I'm so lucky that I got given that opportunity to improve my life. And you know, whatever helps you is something that, you know, you should actively look at and try to do. So yeah, that's about my 2 cents worth.
Thank you very much, Sammy. It was quite inspiring. Just so your new cornea, just one question, sorry. Will it last for your whole life?
Yes. I mean, like the good thing, like with the condition that I had, was that it's most receivers live like a normal, healthy life, and don't have a terrible amount of problems in 90 to 95% of the patients that receive corneal transplants. So the success rate in my case is very, very high. I mean, like they had mentioned that perhaps there could be stigmatism in the right eye that could get worse, but the left should balance the right out potentially for the rest of my life. So yeah, for me, that's actually like quite lucky that it's quite a high success rate on that front.
Thank you so much. Yeah, now I'm going to pass it over to your mom. So she's going to talk about volunteers and about what we could do in the next 6 months. So hi Andy.
Hi, Bita. So thank you, Sam, because I know it took a little bit of courage when you're talking about yourself, and you know, it's something that perhaps not lots of people are aware of. So thank you for filling in at the last moment. So I was just actually going to talk about the next month rather than the next month, which is March. And one of our greatest tenets in Jainism is obviously ahimsa. And what I wanted to do was to explore, because March is International Women's Day as well. So I want to explore domestic abuse and how it connects so well with our Jain principles that if I look at the law on domestic abuse and I look at what Lord Mahavir said, well, you know, if we followed exactly, then there wouldn't be domestic abuse. And domestic abuse is such a big issue and such a concern throughout the world. It's a big topic. An hour isn't enough. It take, you know, I probably need a week, but that's what the topic's going to be about. And I'm hoping that lots of people will attend because it is important, because the comment normally is, well, it doesn't happen in our community. Well, I'm sorry, it does. Whether you're a Jain or not, it does happen. And the more we are aware that actually we are in breach of the law as well as our moral compass, the more important it is. So that's really what I wanted to say. But also, because we are now beginning to do a lot of different activities, we are in need of volunteers. And it would be really great if anyone out there feels they've got a talent, an experience, and expertise. Once we get some of the agendas out to everybody, if you feel that you can contribute in any way, whatever small or big, then please do so. Just volunteer. Speak to Manoj, speak to Sabahu, and let's get more of our Jain Association members on board. If not EC, subcommittees, if not subcommittee, just volunteering with the events and activities that we're planning on in the next 6 months. And hopefully once the EC have agreed an agenda for the next year or so, then that is something that we can put forward to the rest of the membership so they will know and contribute as well. So thanks, that's really all I wanted to say.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Nilamanti and Rakesh Shankar, and they're going to sing a bhajan. I'll just ask them to unmute. Sorry, you have to unmute.
You hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. Jai Jirinder, everyone. We're singing a song my late father used to sing for many years, early in the morning. And I want to obviously remember all my dear family and friends who have passed away over the last few years, and I've known them. And my latest person who's passed away in my family is my dearest Chachaji in Canada, Janeshwar Kumar Jain. And I want to sing this song on behalf of everybody. Yeah. And Rakesh is also joining us, and my brother from Leicester is looking on. So, Papa, I'm not a singer, okay? Okay, we start. Shubha sham jisko tera dhyan hoga, Shubha sham jisko tera dhyan hoga, bada bhagyashali वो इंसान होगा, बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा, उसी को तो हरदम लगन तेरी होगी, उसी को तो हरदम लगन तेरी होगी, जिसका भी पुण्य उदयमान होगा, इसका भी पुण्य उदयमान होगा, बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा, बड़ा भाग्यशाली
वो इंसान होगा। जिसने भी हृदय में तुझको टटोला, जिसने भी हृदय में तुझको टटोला, लगा खाक तन पे क्यों हैरान होगा, लगा खाक तन पे क्यों हैरान होगा। बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा। तेरे नाम से जो भी गाफिल रहेगा, तेरे नाम से जो भी गाफिल रहेगा, समझ लो बड़ा ही वो नादान होगा, समझ लो बड़ा ही वो नादान होगा। बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा। जिस जहाँ भजन हर घड़ी तेरा होगा, जिस जहाँ भजन हर घड़ी तेरा होगा, वैकुंठ साही वो आसान होगा, वैकुंठ साही वो आसान होगा। बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा। तू बेचैन मत हो ले पी प्रेम प्याला, तू बेचैन मत हो ले पी प्रेम प्याला, इसे वो पिए जो कदरदान होगा, इसे वो पिए जो कदरदान होगा। बड़ा भाग्यशाली वो इंसान होगा। सुबह शाम जिसको तेरा ध्यान होगा, बड़ा शाम जिसको तेरा ध्यान होगा। जय नंदा।
Thank you, Rakesh Bhai and Neelamji. So I'll just pass over to Manoj. Just wants to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Sabahu. Lovely, lovely bhajan, Neelam Aunty and Rakesh Uncle. I think I'm just trying to understand, when was the last time I heard Rakesh Uncle's voice? Yeah, lovely.
First time try. First time.
Oh, very good. I think that's the beauty of this platform.
Well, we can't beat you anyway. Oh. You're the best.
Oh, you sing from your heart. That goes from heart to heart. That is more
correct. Correct. Yeah.
And also remembering our old, members, and I think this is a beautiful association for that matter. Like even Neerja ji, many people haven't seen her, so coming, and bringing them back again. That's really nice. And thank you very much to everyone, whoever is participating and getting involved. EC committee who's working at the background like very hard. So thank you to everyone, to be honest. And special thank you today to Neerja ji, who hosted, gave the talk very nicely. So thank you very much.
Very good.
Another special thanks to Sammy. Not sure many people know about Sammy. He's very, very, he's a heartthrob of parties, and he makes people laugh. Whenever he's around, it's really nice time that people have. And what he's shared today, he doesn't share that quite often, and many close friends and even family members may not know these things. So thank you very much, Sammy, for sharing that with us, your really personal things. And I think the only reason he did that is just for the greater good. Otherwise, he doesn't talk about those kind of things. But I just wanted to say at the same time, EC team is proud to bring the various members together and raise important issues. We'll listen to you and try to implement that. Mahavir Jayanti is around the corner, so please send email to Indu Aunty, Preeti, or any other EC member with your kids' participation or adults for singing, dancing, any instrumental playing or anything. Just adding on to Good Masi, what she said, Sarita Masi ji, that we do need one EC member. So anyone who would like to participate and have some certain skills, please do contact us, and then we can take it from there. And finally, I just wanted to say, please let us know in advance if there's anyone who's interested to sing a bhajan, like Neelam Aunty and Rakesh Uncle did today, and it is a special cause to them, and sharing that with everyone does make us feel really close-knitted association. So please do that and let us know it was. And that's all. Thank you very much.
So we've got my father-in-law to give a Logos masterclass. So we can put the spotlight on him. Thank you.
Right. Last time we started with the Logos, and I just wonder whether you people had, those who do not know Logos fully, those who had some time to revise and remember or not. Are there any members here who are not acquainted with the Logos? तो सबको आता है लोगस से यहाँ पे, हैं? अच्छा, नहीं, खैर
डॉक्टर साहब जितना सिखाया उतना आता है,
जितना सिखाया आ गया,
वो आ गया.
That's very good, that's very good. So let us revise that then. कोई आप कहेंगे या मैं कहूँ?
आप ही बोलो, आप ही बोलो.
लोगस उजोगरे धम्म तिसरेजणे अरिहन्ते चित्तेसम चौवीसम केवली. लोगस उजोगरे धम्म तिसरेजणे अरिहन्ते चित्तेसम चौवीसम केवली. एक बार और बोलते हैं, लोगस उजोगरे धम्म तिसरेजणे अगला आता है, उसभ मज्यम च वंदे संभम धनम च पौकम सुपासम जनम च चंदपम वंदे. अब इसमें चारों भगवान, 24 भगवानों के नाम आते हैं. तो पहले जो हमने लिखा था वो हमने देखा था कि अरिहंते कित्तेसम का मतलब था लोक में प्रकाश करने वाले धर्म तीर्थंकर. जिन अरिहंतों को 24 तीर्थंकरों की मैं स्मृति करता हूँ. अब उनके नाम आते हैं अगले चौपाइयों में, जो है भगवान ऋषभदेव, श्री अजितनाथ, श्री संभवनाथ, श्री अभिनंदन स्वामी, श्री सुमतिनाथ, श्री पवन प्रभु, श्री सुपार्शनाथ, श्री चंद्र प्रभु. इनको अगले स्टेंजा में प्रणाम किया जाता है, वंदना की जाती है. तो कहते हैं उसभ मज्यम च वंदे. उसभ मतलब है कि भगवान श्री ऋषभदेव स्वामी और मजियम अजितनाथ स्वामी. तो दो भगवानों का एक ही वर्ड के अंदर दिया है उन्होंने. तो उसभ मज्यम च वंदे संभम मणि मणम दणम च. तो उसमें आगे दिया है कि श्री अजितनाथ, संभवनाथ और अभिनंदन स्वामी को प्रणाम किया गया, उसमें वंदना की गई है. फिर आता है पौकम सुपासम जनम च चंदपम वंदे. तो सुमतिनाथ, पद्म प्रभु और सुपार्शनाथ और चंद्र प्रभु स्वामी को वंदना की गई है. तो इसमें उसभ मज्यम च वंदे, बोलिए उसभ मज्यम च वंदे.
उसभ मज्यम च वंदे
संभव मणि अभिणम दणम अभिणम दणम संभव अभिणम दणम
संभव
अभिणम दणम संभव मभिणम दणम च बहुपम सुपासम बहुपम सुपासम जनम च चंदपहम वंदे. जनम च चंदपहम वंदे. उसभ मज्यम च वंदे Usabha Majyam Cha Vande.
Usabham Madhyam Cha Vande.
Sambhav Mabhinam Danam Cha.
Sabhabam Manindanam Cha Samai Cha.
Sambhav मतलब संभव नाथ स्वामी
संभव भविणम दणम
च
संभव भविणम दणम च सुमय च।
अभिनंदन स्वामी को अभिणम बताया गया है। च सुमयम च पहुपम सुपासम
पहुपम सुपासम
पहुपम सुपासम
पहुपम सुपासम
जणम च वंदे जणम च चंदपहम वंदे उसभ मध्यम च वंदे बोलिए मध्यम च वंदे
उसपम मध्यम च वंदे
संभव
संभव
अभिणम दणम च
भविणम दणम च सुमय
च पौपम सुपासम
पौपम सुपासम
जणम च चंदपहम वंदे
चंदम सपम वंदे।
तो ये नेक्स्ट है। आज मेरे ख्याल से इतना ही करें तो अच्छा है। मैं एक काम करूंगा, मेरे बाद में ध्यान आया मेरे को कि अगर इसको रिकॉर्ड करके और सबको व्हाट्सएप से कर देता हूँ, भेज दे हैं।
हाँ जी हाँ जी।
तो जब कभी आपको फुर्सत मिले 1 मिनट लगेगा, जस्ट उसको खाली सुनो। अगर आप बोलना नहीं चाहते हो मत बोलो, खाली सुनो। सुनने से ही याद हो जाएगा अपने आप आपको। तो जितने भी आपने गाने आपको आते हैं, आपने कहीं पढ़े नहीं है, सुन करके ही आपको गाने याद आएंगे हैं। तो उसी ढंग से खाली सुनने से आपको ये सब याद हो जाएगा।
थैंक यू।
I'll send that off to you.
Okay sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you Dr. Rao.
Yes. काफी सारी चैट्स हैं 15। Subhav?
Oh, hi. So, is it all done?
That's my work is finished.
Okay, excellent. So we'll see you soon, hopefully in a month's time, at the next monthly meeting. We'll send the invite out as soon as we can.
Do you want to give any information regarding Mahavir Jayanti, because it's coming up soon?
I'm going to send out an email about Mahavir Jayanti.
All right. Okay.
And I'll put it on the WhatsApp group as well. So thank you very much, everybody.
Hi Manoj. What's going on 27th of February?
It's 24th. So Subhash is going to send an email. So all of you can have that date in your calendar. So it's Mahavir Jayanti.
No, 27th of February.
It's the AGM.
7th of February is AGM.
AGM. Yeah, that is 2 o'clock because we were getting confused today.
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Yeah, no.
We were trying to get connected 2 o'clock. I said, what's going on?
He was.
Anyway,
thank you very much.
See you on the AGM then.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
see you then. Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.